I'm sorry, I'm just typing here. We're going live on Facebook here, so
Oh,
just
goody.
go live there so we can get some more people to tune in. So I just want to mention, I put a link in the chat box. If you do want to make a donation today, you can use that link. And I guess I'm going to start it off with my biggest question, which is, how did the idea for the garden gnome come about? Because you have the world's largest garden gnome at Kilder's Farm in Accord, New York, and I think that's really cool.
I love that question, and I love the gnome. What happened was I was hoping to create a roadside attraction upstate, and I was working out ideas, and I had written a book about miniature golf in the 1980s, and so that was one idea that was on the table, and then 9/11 happened in my neighborhood in the city, and that set me back a bit, and we were lucky enough to have the only miniature golf course in the city right in our neighborhood on a pier. But it was so near the World Trade Center that they used it as a dumping ground and a sorting ground for debris, and they really trashed it, and then they just never cleaned it up. And so I took it upon myself with my friend Ken Brown, and we did it as a community project, and we redecorated the mini golf with all recycled materials, volunteer help, and we made a statue of a giant garden gnome as part of that miniature golf to draw attention from the West Side Highway, which went right past it. And that was very successful. It was great. And he actually was really tall. And I thought he might be the world's tallest, but it turned out he didn't qualify because we made him out of recycled materials. He was like, made like a parade float, basically. And in order to qualify, in order to qualify for world's largest or world's smallest Guinness World Record, it has to be made out of the same materials as the original. So that meant, cement or terracotta is what garden gnomes are traditionally made out of. So fast forward, a couple of years later, I find a site for my farm-themed miniature golf. And I decided to bring the gnome with me because in the meantime, the city had taken over the mini golf, decided to rebuild it, and they weren't down with any giant gnomes. So I retrieved him. I brought him up. He was gentrified out of Tribeca, just like me. And we transformed him into cement. And so that meant he qualified for a Guinness World Record. And we went for it. And we won it, and bringing international fame to Kilder's Farm, which is a fabulous, fabulous farm that really deserves to be famous because they do 100 acres of U-pick. It's a wonderful family. The farm's over 200 years old, and I'm really proud to have been a part of it for those 10 years that I ran the mini golf, set it up, and built the gnome, who is still there. He has a mask on now.
I was just going to say, I drove by and I saw the mask, so it's cute.
He's social distancing.
How did you transport it? Was it like a tractor trailer or?
I rented a U-Haul truck and I drove it myself.
Oh my God.
I believe it. Yeah.
Okay.
He's not that big. He's only 13 and a half feet tall. But he looks big,
He looks huge, yeah.
Much bigger than us.
So Maria, is there anything happening with our miner in Rosendale? Any interest in
the giant miner? That's still possible. The people who still make Rosendale cement actually volunteered to contribute real Rosendale cement to make the cement miner, but these things take a long time, civic projects.
Correct.
So we just had a note in the chat box from Karen. She said, I'm interested in your cookbook, Maria. I'm just finishing a plant-based diet course through Cornell's Civic and Ecology program. I am a nutrition educator with CCE Albany. I used to work for CCE Columbia with Terry. So it's very cool.
Oh, fabulous. Yeah, well, it's a plant-rich cookbook, does include meat alternatives, but it, is mostly, it's about eating lots of greens, lots of vegetables, which we know now, are so good for us, and not as much meat as we're used to. but still a little. And lots of whole grains and whole foods, not so much processed food.
So my next question for you is in regards to your previous projects, the Stick to Local project. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, that was a really fun annual map that I did for 5 years. Taking a break from it now to work on this new cookbook. But I was just so inspired by our local farms. As I worked with Kelders, I joined the board of the Cornell Valley Growers Association, and I began meeting more and more of our local farmers, and they're just so amazing. And so, to me, they're heroic. I'm a total farmer groupie. I just think they're amazing. And I've never seen anybody work as hard as farmers. I lived in a camper on Kelders Farm while I was working on my project there for a couple of years. And I'll tell you, Chris Kelder would get up before it got light, and he would be out there working, and he would work until after dark during the spring planting season. And then continue to work the year round. It was just amazing. And I know other farmers work so hard, and then they face things like, crop failures, which happen regularly. One crop or the other just, doesn't grow for some reason. And they just keep their chins up and they stay on task. I remember the day after Sandy when Chris's 100 acres of U-pick were completely submerged in water. And I went to see, and I was crying. It was, September, October, and it was the height of harvest season. And Chris got out his boat and went out rowing on the fields with his daughter and thought it was really fun. So, I think that says a lot about the spirit of what it takes to run a farm. And so I really wanted to do something to help more people just see how fabulous these farms are. And I know they can be sort of intimidating to visit. It's not as easy as going into a McDonald's or a Walmart or someplace, that kind of literally rolls out the red carpet. So what I did was I created little art stickers, shaped art stickers for farms, either with their logo or something, meaningful to the farm. And then I created a souvenir map, which I love. I'm a real roadside attraction aficionado, and that includes tourist maps and picture maps. And so I created a map with the farms on it. And the idea was you'd go around to each farm, collect a sticker, and then when you reach certain thresholds of numbers of stickers, then you would get prizes. And if you collected all the stickers, then you would get a goodie bag full of, delightful, locally grown products and produce and surprises. And so I did that for 5 years, and thousands of stickers were given out. People really got to know their local farms, and those stickers, they got people to walk through the gate and visit their farms for the first times. And sometimes that's all it takes, is just that first visit to find out what you're missing. And it was very successful and fun.
So what are some of the biggest challenges you faced with your previous projects, or even the cookbook that you're working on now? Because Stick to Local did have or does have a cookbook as well. It's not just the map, right? So
yes,
this is actually the Turning the Tables cookbook is actually your second cookbook.
Right, that's right. Turning the Tables is second. Stick to Local is the first. And I've written other books, mostly about popular culture, and I've also written technical manuals for computers. My day job in the city, I had a software company in the art world. So there's that piece. But what was the question? Whoops.
Some of the biggest challenges.
Oh, the challenges. I have to say, I've got a shy side, and it's hard for me sometimes to send out emails telling people, look at my work, look at what I'm doing. It's difficult. And I don't want to bug people. And so that's probably the biggest challenge, really, because I love to create, I love to draw, I love to write. And I really enjoy turning people on to new flavors and new ways to do things. I really love to share what I love to do. And I really like to have fun, and I like to eat. And, I've learned to love cooking too, because that's the way to eat well. And so really it's all driven by, my passion for that.
So I have a couple things that came up here in the chat box. The first is from Teresa. She says, and I think she's responding to the previous comment there. She says, yes, me too. I'm hosting an Adopt a Zero Waste lifestyle webinar on May 28th. Reducing red meat and food waste are large components. So that's very cool.
That's a fantastic start. We need to, in order to get a handle on this climate change stuff, we need a multi-pronged approach. And, there's individual actions that we can take, and there are collective actions that we can take, and there are global actions that we can take. And personally, I like to know that there's something that I can do while I'm waiting around for the government to catch up. And, it's important to me to know that I'm doing what I can. I've got a goddaughter who's, in her 20s. I want her to have a good world to grow up in, and, all the other fabulous young people that I know. And so it's, and it's a win-win situation. The food is better, the food's healthier for you. And so it just seems like the natural way to go.
This question might be posed more towards your Rondat Valley Growers Board hat. And the question is, what kind of help are farmers getting during this epidemic from the government? And that's from Lisa Steerer.
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, right now, the Rondat Valley Growers is working with Cornell Cooperative Extension to distribute PPE to farms, hand washing solution and masks, and information about how to do social distancing on their farms. And so they're distributing literally tons of this stuff. There are tractor trailer loads of it that are going out. So that's really important. We're keeping our members really up to date on all the potential aid that is available, the governmental aid. That has been really, really hard for farms because it's been very difficult to figure out how they qualify and to get all those blasted forms filled out. And so that's part of what we've been doing. We're doing our own little fundraiser to raise grant money. Farms are having to really pivot right now. As you know, Lisa, owning the big cheese, I'm sure you've been facing some of the same challenges. So they're really been having to figure out new ways to do business, both marketing and their farming practices. And so a lot of them, this is causing a lot of them and inspiring a lot of them to really do some business change-ups that are going to serve them well into the future and serve us all well into the future. And so what we want to do is we want to help them do that. They need a little bit of, they're up working until midnight doing this stuff. They need some help, putting in the new websites or figuring out the new routes. We're kind of helping figure out a way to do local distribution to people's doorsteps so that, the people who really can't go out and shop can get fresh local produce. And that's another aspect of what we're up to.
Mhm.
Okay, Teresa said farmers can also get help from the Farm Bureau and their local chambers of commerce if they're members or even if they're not. So another question for you, bringing us back a little bit in time. What brought you to the Hudson Valley, and how did you end up a board member at the Rondat Valley Growers Association?
I started coming to the Rondat Valley in 1992. I shared a farmhouse with some friends, and we'd come up every chance we got from the city. And starting then, I just fell in love with the area. And I just continued to, come up here every chance I could. I had a couple of friends up here and I made more friends. And I started my business at Kelder's Farm in 2005. And so by that time I knew more people, and I thought I'd be a half and half person, half in the city and half up here. But after a few years of that, I just let go of the city and moved up here full time because I love it here. It's just, the community is the best, and fell in love with the farmers again. And I love the landscape. It's so beautiful. And we've got the proximity to the city. I can still go down and visit friends like Risa and other pals and couch surf. So I consider it the best of all worlds.
Great. So we have approximately 10 minutes left, which is crazy that the time's already gone by. So do you want to talk about the Turning the Tables cookbook, and then we'll shift to Janie? Or Janie, you want to do an intersection of pineapple vinegar? What do you think?
It's up to you, Maria.
Go for it.
Okay.
In the meanwhile, if anybody wants to challenge me with ingredients that they've got in their fridge that they want to make a meal out of, think about that and type them up in the chat box, or you can just tell me after Janie talks about her pineapple vinegar, and I'll tell you what you can make.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Janie Greenwald. I work at Cornell Extension of Ulster County as a nutrition educator, but I've also got a cooking background, professional cooking background. And I was able to join Maria and Tara and Jared for the first few meetings about the carbon footprint cookbook. And so things I had never thought about before were, what can I do on a personal level to reduce my carbon footprint? I always thought of it as big industry as the big culprits. So this got me thinking, and I came across this recipe for pineapple vinegar, and I thought, oh, I have to try this. So I'm trying this now. And Tara has the recipe that she can email to all of you if you like. So the recipe I started with is 4 cups of water, a cup of sugar, either white or brown. And I used the peel and the core of a whole pineapple. You can also use just the fruit if you want. You can also use other fruits like apples for apple cider vinegar. You can use leftover wine, red or white. And it's a fermentation process. So it's the water, the sugar, and the fruit. And what I do, does this come up backwards on your screen? It says 5-7. Okay, so that's the day I started it. It's just on a piece of tape. And so it's really fun it's like hours of fun watching this process. Ideally, it would be maybe in a crock or a dark jar, but I wanted to see what was happening, so I keep it in a dark place. And you'll see the liquid change color. Now, the temperature in your kitchen will really affect how quickly or slowly, and it's like almost immediate response. When I started this, it was warm in my kitchen, so I started having bubbles at the top on the second day. But now it's kind of colder in the kitchen. I haven't had the heat on for a couple days. It was actually 58 in my kitchen this morning, so the process is slowing down. But you'll get to see the sugar. The sugar is kind of the fuel for the bacteria and the yeast, and that's, I don't know if up close there are bubbles coming up to the top. It is alive. And so at the top here are the bubbles at the top. This is good. This means it is alive and fermenting. So I have it covered. You can use a cheesecloth, an old t-shirt that's clean, obviously, and you want the air to get into the jar. So this is 2 weeks old. It's not ready yet, and it's gone through several different colors and smells. And at about 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks, depending on the temperature, a mother will start to form on the top. You want to stir it every day so it doesn't get moldy. If you see like the green or the black mold, throw it out and start over. But it really, like I haven't had any mold in this yet. So when the mother forms, that's a good thing. It's almost like a jelly-like layer that'll form on the top. And you can save that. Once you would slide that off the top, strain out the vinegar at the end, and it's done when you like the taste of it, basically. So the mother you can save, cover it with some other vinegar, and you can use it to start your next batch, and it will speed up the fermentation process. So this is how far I've gotten with this experiment. It's just been so much fun to see all the changes that everything goes through and the smells. And one thing I've read is that the mother is kind of vinegar specific. So this should have a slight pineapple flavor to it once it's ready. You can use others, I imagine, peaches, any kind of fruits or berries you could use. So I think it's, and I like that it's just using the peel and the core, and I got to eat the vinegar. So it is one way to cut down on waste in the kitchen, aside from composting. Okay, so if you have any questions, just write them in the chat box, and I hope you have fun adventures.
Thank you, Janie.
Yep.
So I have some people who are interested in this challenge, Maria.
Yay.
The first post is from Teresa, and she has seedless cucumbers, corn salsa, green peppers, and Kalamata olives.
Oh, that's a nice combo, actually. By the way, Janie, that sounds like so much fun. I'm going to do that. What is the mother made of? Is it yeast? Basically?
It's, yeah, yeast and bacteria. It's the combination that comes together. You keep the fruit in here until the vinegar's ready, and then you strain it all off. You can keep it in the cupboard after that, and it will last like regular vinegar.
Cool. So dinner challenge. Let's see. So we've got the seedless cucumbers, corn salsa, green peppers, and Kalamata olives. So one recipe one meal that I suggested that I make in the cookbook is called snacks for dinner. And I posit that if you can make a pesto or a salsa, then you can just basically take almost anything and make it into a nice meal. So you've got your corn salsa already. I would potentially chop the green peppers, the seedless cucumbers, and the Kalamata olives and add them to the corn salsa. Taste it, add some salt, a little squeeze of lemon or some other acid, to taste. And then you can use that on some sauteed, you could use it on some sauteed protein, like, any kind of like tofu or tempeh or seitan or a chicken breast, something like that. Serve it over rice, and you kind of have a meal. You've got your vegetables there because they're all included in the salsa, and you've got some protein, and you've got a whole grain underneath, and that kind of there's not a lot of cooking there either. If you that you have to do. Another dinner challenge. Hudson Valley tempeh, assorted vegetables, wild nettles, yum, asparagus, onions, cabbage, all kinds of herbs in the garden, all kinds of condiments. So, I think that this would really make a fantastic harvest bowl. The tempeh is a really interesting lightly processed food where you take beans or lentils and you inoculate them with a a type of mushroom. It's a mold, actually. I know that sounds awful, but it's not. And then it grows and it makes a nice little cake out of beans. So what I would do is I would slice that tempeh. I would saute it and make it crisp on at least one side. I would take the wild nettles and I would, with rubber gloves on, I would strip them from the stems and lay them on top of that tempeh in the pan after it's sauteed, clamp a cover on, that'll wilt the nettles. And the nettles have tiny, tiny little glass-like thorns with ant sting toxin in them. It's a real special effects plant. But when you cook it, all those little glass-like needles just wilt, and so it can't sting you anymore. So you wilt the nettles. They're deliciously umami. Asparagus you could eat raw, or you could either steam it or put it in the microwave for a second. Soak the onions in a little bit of vinegar in order to take some of the sting out of them. And then you could arrange these all in a plate, make a dressing, drizzle the dressing, have, a starch if you like, some crackers or some toast, or maybe some whole grain, put that underneath. And so you've got your protein tempeh, you've got some really great greens, wild nettles are so good for you. You've got your asparagus and onions, and you can sprinkle it with chopped herbs, which I consider the confetti of the food world. I throw them all over everything. And they're like flavor bombs and nutrition bombs. They are the vitamins of the food world. And there you've got a really nice harvest bowl, and it's probably going to be really pretty too. It's going to be green, spring-like, and yummy.
I'm going to unmute Janie for a second because Janie, there's a question for you on the vinegar. Let's see there. There you go. All right. So Anita and Karen both say thank you very much. That was really fun. The question is, do you remove the fruit or keep the fruit when you strain it in the vinegar?
Yeah, you strain out the fruit. You can keep part of the mother in this and then use part of the mother for your next batch, but the fruit is kind of spent. So there's really no reason to keep it in the vinegar. So like that recipe made 2 quart jars. So once I strain it, then I can just store it in the 1 jar.
And I'll send the recipe to everyone when we're done, so you have it. I extended the meeting till 11:45, so we had a little extra time. I was worried we'd get cut off here.
Good.
So from Risa, Maria, what things do you like to do with fresh ramps?
Well, what don't I like to do with fresh ramps? Ramps are in the onion family, and they are wild. They differ from other onions because they have a big broad leaf that is about yay long and about this wide, and it's like a tender leaf. So it's got 2 edible parts. It's got the leaf and it's got the bulb. And if you are lucky enough to have a big wild ramp bed, you can harvest the whole thing, but you never want to harvest more than 10% of your ramps because they're slow growing, and you don't want to diminish your bed of ramps. And so they are really smelly, and that's one of the things we love about them. So there's all kinds of things you can do with them. I like to throw them. The easy thing is to, slick them up with a little bit of oil and throw them on, and some salt, and throw them on the grill, and they're really good that way. I always put the bulbs toward the center where the charcoal is, and leave the greens on the outside edge to cook a little more slowly. Oh boy, neighbors are mowing their lawn. I hope it's not too noisy. But the other thing you can do is you can separate the leaves from the bulbs. You can take the leaves and you can make a pesto by by blending them with a little bit of oil and salt and any other ingredients you might want to add. And you can freeze that pesto and you can use it year round. And then you can take the bulbs and you can put them in your pineapple ginger and you can pickle them. And they're really good in a dirty martini. Yeah. And also great in sandwiches. And I really can't wait to try the vinegar recipe because I feel like I'm going to go to town with it. I didn't know it was that easy to make vinegar. I'm excited about that. But really, you can use them any place you use onions. Great for a frittata. Great on pasta. You know, really good. Just all kinds of ways. Just make
All
sure.
right, one more
They're
question.
good for the age of social distancing. Let's just put it that way.
This question's from Anita, and she asks, is the Rondout Valley Growers Association planning any virtual events or programs since we can't have in-person events?
We are working on that. You know, we're a small organization, and you know, our plans have just been turned upside down. And so, you know, we're pivoting like everybody else is. Right now, we're really focused on the farmers and helping them get their feet under them. We don't want to lose any farmers because of this. And, you know, there are a lot that, you know, are always on the edge. It's so challenging. And I want to say also that Cornell Cooperative Extension does so much for farmers. It's an organization that is over 100 years old. It's a nationwide group of extensions that have been helping farmers, helping farm families, and since in the last, you know, 30, 40 years, since there have been fewer farmers, they've been extending themselves to helping urban communities with nutrition, and they have to raise 80% of their money themselves. And it's such a gift to our community that I just want to encourage everybody who's able to. I know it's hard for people right now, but if you can, Janie and Tara and the rest of the gang there work so hard to keep everybody informed and keep everybody healthy. It's very important. We're all kind of small organizations, and your help and support is really important, whether it's financial or emotional. It's key.
So Maria, I had a couple messages come through. How can we buy the book?
Well, there's a way you can get on the list to get the book. I'm looking for people to test recipes because the book is all made up of master recipes. It's impossible to try all the variations. And so what I thought would be really fun is to invite the community to try recipes out while I'm writing them. I mean, they've all been somewhat tested before you get them, so there will not be any disasters, I can almost promise. But if you can try the recipe and give me your feedback, tell me how it worked out for you. We've got a real simple online survey, or you can just send us an email. We love your pictures. We've got a new website, turningthetablescookbook.com. Oh, and right now I want to give a shout out to Risa Mickenberg, who's on this call because she's the one who came up with our wonderful title, Turning the Tables. Thank you, Risa. Really kick ass, I gotta say. So, you know, come to the new webpage, turningthetablescookbook.com. Check out the recipes. We'll be posting them. I've got a blog situation set up so you can send questions. You can tell, you know, each recipe becomes your own creation, and I really want to hear what you're doing with them. People who were involved in our cookbook club back when we could meet were just coming up with some really cool surprises that I never would have thought of. And I'm including their photos on the website and you know, in our social media. So if you contribute in that way, if you become a contributor and help test recipes, I will give you a signed copy of the cookbook when it comes out and a thank you in the cookbook. Check it out. And then, you know, hopefully next year, the cookbook will be available for sale everywhere that you can get cookbooks.
Great. Well, thank you, Maria, for joining us today. We are just about out of time here. Well, we're over time actually, but that was fun. And I feel like we learned a lot. everyone in the chat has been very encouraging here and had a great time. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I will send an email including information about the pineapple, about our cookbook, and about our donation page today. So I hope you all stay healthy and well. And thanks again for joining us.
Well, stay healthy. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.